Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Racing Rundown. Aidan Molinaro here with Liam Molinaro. This is our Belmont Stakes preview show. I'm going to kick it to Liam real quick here just to recap what we've seen so far in the 2025 Triple Crown race season with the Kentucky Derby and Preakness Stakes going down in past weeks. And we are now in the midst of Belmont Stakes week, with the Belmont Stakes taking place at Saratoga Race Course this Saturday, June 7th. With a monster card to support it as well. One of the best race cards we have, other than the Breeders' Cup or that Churchill Downs Kentucky Derby Day card. Liam, why don't you just tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, obviously we had Sovereignty winning the Kentucky Derby, and then the big storyline that he was skipping the Preakness. I believe DRF came out with the article last week, and Belmont might have ruffled a few feathers with the words Preakness. I believe his words were Preakness was never in our thoughts, or something along those lines. So obviously he skipped that race, and then journalism was able to come away with the win there in a really strange running of the Preakness. And then that obviously lines us up here for the Belmont Stakes, where we get all three of the top three finishers in the Kentucky Derby all back here. So it should, and we also got some new shooters. So it looks like a great race on paper this year.
Definitely, and it's only an 8-horse field this year for this year's rendition of the Belmont, and it's also, like you said, run at a mile and a quarter, not the common mile and a half that it's usually run at Belmont Park. Obviously, next year it'll get back to that mile and a half over on Big Sandy, and it's being remodeled right now, so it's going to be brand spanking new for the new Belmont Stakes for the 2026 Belmont Stakes next year. What do you say we dive into this year's race though, and just start going over the field and analyzing a couple of these horses?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. All right. All right. So the Belmont Stakes, like I just said, is a mile and a quarter. It's at Saratoga. We're starting with the number one horse in here. That is Hill Road for trainer Chad Brown. Hill Road's 2 for 5 lifetime with 2/3. He comes off a win in the Peter Pan last out at Belmont, but at the Belmont meet at Aqueduct. That was a pretty good win. He ran down McAfee and beat Captain Cook in there. Captain Cook ran behind Rodriguez in the Wood Memorial. So some familiar faces we've seen on the Derby Trail there. But Hill Road, he is kind of a come from behinder. He likes to close from off the pace. So he kind of needs a hot early pace in front of him. With that being said, he's run well in the past with slow paces in front of him, like the Tampa Bay Derby, where Owen Almighty set a pretty lackadaisical pace, and he was able to still run third in there. What do you think about this one, Liam, with Irad now in the saddle?
Yeah, I like, obviously you couldn't get Flavian Pratt here, but I like Irad Ortiz. I mean, obviously is probably the best option you could get other than Pratt. I thought he ran a better race in the Peter Pan than it may have come back numbers wise. That it wasn't necessarily a huge pace to close into the other day at Aqueduct, and he ran huge. He ran down McAfee and Captain Cook, and got up to win. He might have needed that race at Tampa Bay in his 3-year-old debut, first race since the Breeders' Cup. That being said, I think this horse, he kind of reminds me of like a Sierra Leone of last year. Obviously, he's not going to be as short of a price. So there's value here with this one, but I think he does kind of need a pace setup. And Saratoga is kind of a track that you don't want to be like too far back. So, this horse has it stacked up against him, but he might offer some value to get into the trifecta.
Yeah, no, obviously with that rider switch, he's got to go with Baeza. Near missing in the Derby, or missing second in the Derby, almost getting up to beat journalism there. But let's move on to the number two horse in here. The number two is the Derby winner, Sovereignty. Junior Alvarado getting the mount back again. Obviously, Junior Alvarado came back off that injury to win on him in the Derby, and he gets to ride him back here in the Belmont Stakes. Obviously, like you mentioned, Liam, the big storyline is him skipping the Preakness, and that ignited this whole Triple Crown debate on whether the Triple Crown is too outdated. I personally think we should keep it the same because that's what makes the Triple Crown special. But that's just my opinion. But Sovereignty, as far as his chances in this Belmont, I think he's a huge win candidate. Obviously, he's got the talent. His buyers have been going up steadily the last two starts. I think the only question maybe with him is he ran a triple-digit buyer for the first time in his life, and it was in the slop in the mud. So he hadn't run in the mud before the Derby, and then he really took a leap forward in it. So if it is a fast track at Saratoga on Saturday, maybe that takes him down another notch, or maybe he was just getting better. Those are the only kind of questions I could possibly have about him. Other than him, I can't really poke any holes in his form. What do you think, Liam?
Yeah, obviously he's got a huge shot in here. As far as the pace scenario, the last couple of years at Saratoga, a horse like Sierra Leone and Mindframe, they couldn't get by Dornoch in the stretch. So this isn't a track that's been huge like favor to closers or kind of the running type that Sovereignty is. But nonetheless, he's got a huge chance in here. I don't read too much into the fresh horse. I mean, people are saying that a lot about like journalism. This is going to be his third race in 5 weeks. I don't think that's, too big of an impact here. Sovereignty did get to Saratoga a little early. He has been training great. So we'll see. I think he's primed for a huge race, but we'll see if it's good enough.
Definitely, it'll be really interesting to see. I'm very excited to see that Derby top three. Rehash it and go at it once again. The number three horse in here though is Rodriguez. So this is the speedster from Bob Baffert's barn. We haven't seen him since early April, where he won the Wood Memorial. Rodriguez wired that field, and then obviously had some foot issues that were well documented in the media. That's the reason he had to stay out of the Kentucky Derby and Preakness. What are your feelings about this? Obviously, the jockey changed. Or sorry, no, Mike Smith rode him. That was Martin Garcia rode Citizen Bull in the Kentucky Derby. So Mike Smith coming back to ride Rodriguez in this spot. Do you think he can take him all the way? Does he have a chance there on the front end?
I mean, I think Rodriguez has one way to go, and I think, Bob Baffert knows that, and I think the bettors and the fans know that as well. And we'll get to a couple of horses later that might have a chance to impact the pace scenario in here. But no, I definitely think Mike Smith's going to hustle this horse out of the gate. He could be dangerous on the lead. We don't really know how that Wood Memorial stacked up. Obviously, we haven't seen Grande since that effort. Then Passion Rules and a Captain Cook and a couple other horses that ran behind him. So, this horse is going to have to prove that his Wood Memorial wasn't a fluke. And if you're willing to take him at 6-1 against, three other really quality 3-year-olds in here, I'm not going to be willing to take him, but he is going to be on the lead in my opinion. That's, always a dangerous thing in this sport. So, he's not without a shot.
Yeah, no, I agree, Liam. It should be interesting to see from a pace perspective what he does, along with Crudo, who we'll get to later, the 5 horse. So let's move on, though, real quick to the 4 horse Uncaged. This horse is one of 2 trained in here for Todd Pletcher, owned by Windstar Farm and Rapoli Stable. But I feel like Mike Rapoli has a little bit of a bigger share than Windstar, because he's been tweeting, should I put him in here? Should I do this with Uncaged? Where should I run him on social media? So I think he definitely has a lot of say in where this horse runs, and he is now in the Belmont, that 30-1 morning line. Last time saved ground against Hill Road in the Peter Pan, and then just couldn't do anything with it. This horse is going to be a toss for me. What do you think, Liam?
Yeah, this just feels like one of those horses that was thrown into the field, especially Rapoli, who's been kind of known for doing that. Because this race was looking like even a couple days ago, like a week ago, that it might be like 5 or 6 horses, and I think there was a lot of scrutiny with the field size. So Rapoli said, "Well, I might as well throw him in there. He'll get some airtime out of it." But I'm in agreement with you. I don't think he's a player in here.
Yep. All right. The number 5 horse, like I said, is Crudo. That's the other Todd Pletcher trainee. This horse is a tad bit more interesting. Has a lot of early speed and a lot of talk going in this race of people trying to figure out what the pace scenario is going to be like, and how is it going to set up for that Derby top 3 that like to come from off the pace. Baeza just a little off the pace, but the other 2 favorites, that they like to come from a little bit farther back. Crudo last time really, really impressive in the Sir Barton Stakes at Pimlico. On the Preakness undercard, took them wire to wire. It was an 84 buyer, so it was a decent performance. I don't really know who was behind him, but what do you think about this horse, Liam, getting Johnny V in the saddle, his customary rider?
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't really know who he was beating last time out in the Sir Barton. Nonetheless, it was an impressive performance, so you have to take that into account. This is another one of the Todd Pletcher runners. Both of them were kind of thrown in here at the last minute. He does impact the pace scenario, like I was saying earlier with Rodriguez. I don't think Johnny B is going to be wanting to go too fast up front with Rodriguez. So if he sees Mike Smith sending early, he might want to take this horse off a little, but he's definitely going to be near the front. I just think he might get even first run at Rodriguez, but I don't think he's as good as the horses that are going to be closing behind him.
Yeah, no, I think even if he gets first crack at him, I think the closers are going to pretty much be there right on his hip to overtake him pretty quickly. Let's move on to the sixth horse, though, Baeza, trained by John Sheriffs. This is the horse that ran third in the Kentucky Derby behind Sovereignty and Journalism. He was flying on the outside. He was a big story leading up on Derby week because Baeza was the also trying to get into the race, and obviously there was a couple defections the week of the Derby, and he was able to get in. But he ran an amazing race. I mean, I want to say he was double digit odds, close to 14-1 in the Kentucky Derby, and he still made a great run. He got in a lot of trouble at the 5/16 pole, kind of steadied, and then hooked really wide and was able to almost nose out Journalism for second there in the Derby. So, what do you think about his chances, Liam? Obviously, he gets Pratt back after he rode him in the Derby.
Yeah, I think he's the most interesting one out of the three coming from the Derby just because he's going to be the highest price out of the three.
Right.
So I think a lot of the bettors are going to be attracted to this horse. And like you said, he was maybe one or two jumps away from being second in the Kentucky Derby, and he did have trouble around the far turn. This horse to me just looks on paper like a horse that's coming into his own and getting better every start. He looks like that in the morning too at Saratoga. So. I'm excited to see, how Baeza is going to perform, and he's got a huge shot in here.
And obviously, he's got the royal family being out of the Super Broodmare Puka. Seems like she produces a classic horse every year with Dornock last year and then Baeza this year. That's obviously good for his sire, too, McKenzie, who's roughly just starting out his sire career. So it should be really interesting. Like you said, I agree. I think he's one of the most interesting storylines and can't be ignored going into Saturday. Now the number 7 horse, Journalism. Obviously, this horse ran second in the Derby, right behind Sovereignty, and then that was an amazing performance in the Preakness that he ran 2 weeks later, getting in tons of trouble there, trying to split horses on the rail with Goal Oriented and Flavien Prat kind of leaning in. He was leaning out a little bit with Humberto, so a lot of bumper car action went on there, and he was still able to catch Gosger in the lane, who was probably 5-6 lengths in front, and he was still able to nail him on the wire. He gave all of us goosebumps watching that race. So obviously, I think that contributes to his 8-5 morning line being the favorite over Sovereignty. What do you think, Liam?
Yeah, I'm glad Michael McCarthy and the connections have brought journalism to not only the Belmont but all three Triple Crown races, which is seemingly more and more rare as the years go on, especially with a talent like this. But no, absolutely just huge performance in the Preakness. Obviously, on paper he won by half length, but it probably should have been more like 5 or 6 with all the trouble he got in, and just to win was remarkable with what he went through in that race. And we'll see what he can do with a clean trip, hopefully here in the Belmont.
Yeah, that's the thing I'm hoping for is that the Derby top three they all get clean trips and we get to see who the best horse is on that day. That was just really unfortunate to see Journalism get in a lot of trouble, and I don't think any other horse would have won that race. I mean, usually you have trouble like that and the race is over. So that was amazing to see. Let's move on. Last but not least, the number 8 horse, Heart of Honor, goes out for trainer Jamie Osborne with his daughter in the saddle here. This horse is 2 for 7 lifetime, 4 seconds, so he's had a pretty nice career for his connections so far. Coming over from Maidon to run in the Preakness Stakes. He ran fifth. He was acting up in the post raid and then the gate, and then he kind of broke slow and didn't do a whole lot of running. This was one I'm probably going to leave off my tickets, now going 1.25 miles. What do you think, Liam?
Yeah, I mean he's a horse that I don't hate at, like, if he's higher than that 30-1 morning line, I think that's, pretty good value. I don't think he's the should be the longest shot in this field. That being said, I just don't, think he's as talented. He was beat 8 3/4 lengths by Journalism, who got into immense amount of trouble. So you add, 5 or 6 lengths to that. That's what he's going to have to make up here. And not only that, but Sovereignty by Asa Rodriguez. So, this horse is definitely up against it, but I'm glad to see Jamie Osborne and his daughter back for one more Triple Crown race.
No, it should make for a good storyline on NBC for sure. I do agree with you. I think he should be a shorter price than Uncaged. Uncaged probably should be the longest shot in the field, but we will see come race day. What do you see now? We get into the value plays for the card. So this is what the part of the show where we give our value plays out in any race that's on that Belmont Stakes Day card. Liam, do you want to start us off with your value?
Yeah, my value play is going to be in race number 11. It's the Woody Stevens. And this was just a stacked race. I mean, I thought outside of maybe the 6T craft, you could make a shot or a case for every horse in this field. My value play was to the far outside, the number 11 Gate to Wire for Todd Pletcher and Donegal Racing. I thought he ran a better race than it looked on paper in the Pat Day Mile. You know, he had a horrible start and he actually came running late. Was beaten fourth, but he was beaten 9 lengths behind Mattakit Road and Gaming. Neither of those horses really did any running, and they were, closer to the pace. Gate to Wire was way back, and he actually came running. Macho Music was just a runaway winner that day. But I think if you can get anything close to 12 to 1 on this horse, his only other time sprinting on the dirt was in the Swale at Gulfstream Park, and he won by 5 lengths, went off at 13 to 1. So I think you might get some value on this horse again on Saturday in the Woody Stevens. And I like this post for him too. He draws the far outside, so he kind of stays away from that inside. You know, a lot of horses I think are going to be gunning for the lead. So this horse might get a decent setup. And he's by money, so 7/8 probably hits him right in the head. And this is probably what he's meant to do. They've tried long, wasn't really meant for him, but 7/8 should be perfect.
Yeah, no, my value plays in the exact same race. I just went in slightly different direction. I like the 3 horse Macho Music in the Woody Stevens. Like Liam said, it is the 11th race on the card, and I agree with you. I think this might be one of the best betting races on the card because, like you said, you can make a case for almost anybody in here. There's tons of winning angles. I do like Gate to Wire as well. I think he could get a pretty good trip. I noticed he's been working with Crudo, so he's been working him in the mornings, and sometimes he uses him as a little bit of a target. So I don't know if that could do anything to his confidence. That could definitely just be myself overlooking that, and it couldn't matter maybe in the afternoon. Maybe that's just a morning thing that they go through. So I don't know about that one, but I really do like Macho Music because of his impressive win last out in the Pat Day Mile, but also because he's been improving each time he's been running lately with the 84, 94, 97 buyer. He's been getting faster as he goes on. And he's 4 for 8 lifetime with 2 seconds. I know he did get beat by Gate to Wire, but that was 3 starts back. And with these 3-year-olds, they can improve each and every start. So I think Macho Music is going in the right direction. But like you said, this race is really interesting. So there's a lot of different win candidates. I just think Macho Music 8 to 1 on the morning line. He's going to provide a lot of value. And hopefully you can take advantage of some of those value plays. What do you say after this? We get into the most likely winner on the card. So we're going to that was kind of our value play. This will be the most likely winner on the card of Belmont Stakes Day. What do you say we started off with you, Liam?
Yeah, I'm looking at race number 8. It's the Met Mile. 5 horse field in this rendition of the Met Mile, but I think, it's a great field of 5. Obviously with the matchup between Fierceness and White Abarrio, which a lot of people have been waiting for. But I ultimately landed on Fierceness as my most likely winner of the day. I love horses that get better, you know, and he got better in his 3-year-old year as the year went on. And, his 4-year-old debut in the Ali Sheba, he just looks like an even better horse. So if he keeps improving, I don't see how he loses this race. He's 3 for 3 as well at Saratoga, earning over $1 million as well with that win in the Jim Dandy and the Travers last year during his 3-year-old year. This race is going to be run out of that Wilson chute, so it's kind of a weird configuration there at Saratoga. It's not the traditional, Belmont Park one-turn Met Mile. But I think Fierceness should get a good trip from the rail. I'm not really worried about the post at all. And if he runs like he's capable of, I think he should win in this spot. The only thing I'm concerned about with White Abarrio is just kind of the affinity that he's shown for Gulfstream Park, and he hasn't really, shown it elsewhere. I know he won the Whitney here at Saratoga, but his run last year in the Met Mile was just dismal. And he's back with Saffie Joseph, so maybe that, kind of reignited this horse, but he is going to be shipping out of Gulfstream Park where he's run his last 4. So I'm going to lean to the inside and Fierceness, who's going to be my most likely winner on this year's Belmont card.
All right. No, I like that race too, Liam. I'm definitely looking forward to see those two go at it. Him and White Abarrio. Yeah, maybe the Safi Joseph and at Saratoga, he's undefeated, right? But like you said, yeah, in the Met Mile, maybe Dutrow wasn't getting it done. Who knows though? It'll be really interesting to see that race. My value play, or sorry, my most likely to win is Nitrogen, who is right around that morning line of even money. She's 6 to 5 there on the morning line. Nitrogen, she's on a tear. She's definitely looking like one of the favorites. The early favorites, probably the filly and mare turf. Obviously, the connections are probably aimed for that one. If not, the Breeders' Cup Mile. She likes both distances, so we shall see where she ends up at the end of the year. But for Saturday, she is running in the Wonder Again Stakes. It's a Grade 2 event there. The sixth race on the card. I really like her on top, and I think she's the most likely winner. She's just very tactical. Mark Cassie always runs her in kind of spots where she's going to be really tough. He hasn't thrown her to the wolves quite yet. I think that's coming, like I said, later in the year. But look for Nitrogen to extend her win streak here and win her fifth in a row on Saturday with Jose Ortiz in the saddle, who's been aboard her for all of her wins during this streak. So Nitrogen for me as my most likely winner on the Belmont Stakes card.
Yeah. Yeah, let's get right into the Belmont Stakes picks if that's cool.
Yep.
Yeah, let's do it. On top for me, it's going to be journalism. I'm not going to be as exciting for this year's Belmont. I'm hoping we can get maybe 6, 7 to 5 on this horse, just because Sovereignty and Baeza are going to take a lot of money. Maybe I don't know if we'll get the 8 to 5 morning line. I saw someone saying that he'll be less than even money. I don't see that, but I'm hoping if we can get around 8 to 5 on this horse, I would take that. The reason I'm putting him on top is I just think he's the best horse in this race. He's going to go off favorite in all three Triple Crown races. I know Sovereignty beat him on the square in the Derby, but that was in the slop. Journalism had the lead. Sovereignty just ran right by him. So who knows? Maybe, if journalism, can kick clear in this spot. And hopefully it's a fast track here Saturday for the Belmont. For second, I'm going to go to the number 6, Baeza. I'm just putting him in there because I think he's going to be closer to the pace. I don't think he's going to be as far back as he was in the Kentucky Derby. I think he'll be probably mid-pack, maybe fourth or fifth. I definitely think he's going to be in front of Sovereignty, and I think we'll get, first run before him. So I'm keeping that Santa Anita Derby exacta alive again for this year's Belmont. And then for third, I did go to number 2, Sovereignty, the Derby winner. This horse just kind of grinds away. He is going to be in my trifecta. I think any of the three could win. That's just how I put it. I put journalism over Baeza over Sovereignty.
All right, Liam. I have the same trifecta, but in slightly a different order. I have Baeza on top. I just think he's really getting good at the right time, and he's improving each start. Obviously, with the Santa Anita Derby, giving journalism a hell of a run in that race. But then in the Kentucky Derby, almost beating him and encountering trouble at the 5/16 pole. I watched that replay so many times, and it looked like he was making his run right at the same time as Journalism and Sovereignty, and they were able to stay out in the clear, and he had to stop and check a little bit. So I think if he can get a clear run Saturday, I think he can turn the tables on them. But like you said, I think all three of them have huge win chances. Journalism is going to be my second choice in there. I just think the horse is way too consistent, and he runs a winning race every single time that he runs. So he's going to be there in that second spot for me. And then my third horse is going to be Sovereignty in the third spot, because I just can't see Sovereignty not running his race either. I just think depending on the pace, he's one that if he gets a little too far back, he'll be coming with his run, but maybe it's not quite enough to get up in time. Like maybe the Florida Derby where he ran second to Japan Street. Again, no shame in running second in the Florida Derby there, but he made his run. He just wasn't quite ready to get up there. But then obviously the Derby, everything came together. But who knows, he doesn't hang a little bit and hold on for third. So that is why I'm going to put him there. Baeza over journalism, over Sovereignty for me in the Belmont Stakes. So both of us are kind of we have a Kentucky Derby top three, but a little mix up on there.
Yeah, I really did try to get some prices, into this trifecta. I looked at this race a bunch, even a Hill Road, a Rodriguez, maybe even a Crudo, but I just couldn't get to it. I think if this race is run clean, hopefully it is. We've seen some trouble in the previous races, but this is only an 8-horse field, so hopefully we don't encounter any trouble. I think it's going to be a very formful Belmont, and hopefully it can play out like that.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you, Liam. I think if we get to see these top three get very clean trips and run their own races like they like to do, none of that Preakness stuff that happened with journalism, then hopefully we get to see these three coming down the lane at Saratoga together. That would be the most exciting thing for us as racing fans. And for you guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Those are our Belmont top three picks. We hope you guys cash in this weekend, get lucky on Saturday, and thank you so much for watching this episode of Racing Rundown. Remember to like this video, comment down below what you think about our comments, and make sure to subscribe and follow us at Racing Rundown 151. We will see you next time. Thank you, everybody.